Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello and welcome. If you're just joining us, I recommend grabbing something to write with and grabbing something to write on as we tune in and listen to Mitch share his wisdom and knowledge about networking today. And with that being said, I am showing noon on the dot, so I will go ahead and kick things off. Hello and welcome everyone to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I am a senior dream curator here on DreamBank, and on behalf of our team, thank you so much for joining us here today. As we get started, we always like to learn where people are joining us from. So if you're comfortable, please go ahead and do so in the chat section as well. And then in addition, some other housekeeping items. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and joining us here today. You made the conscious effort to be here. With that being said, this is not a class, this is voluntary. So if you're able to, I know Mitch would very much appreciate the engagement and interaction, but if you're able to have your camera on, come off of mute. Mitch is ready for every and all the questions. So please be sure to engage in that respect if you're comfortable in doing so. And for those of you who aren't familiar with DreamBank, I'd love to take a few moments and kind of share with you. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe that the communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. And that's why DreamBank was created. It's an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and to stay motivated. So I know you're all here to listen to Mitch talk about networking today. That happens to fall under our business event series. So we have 9 distinct event series at DreamBank. I'll be dropping a few links in the chat just to give you a good, concise list of what our upcoming offerings are, in addition to view some of our previous events that we have up on our YouTube page. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Mitch and let him take it away. Mitch, go ahead.
Oh boy, just throwing right over to me, Andy. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, Andy Frisky from American Family Insurance DreamBank. Thank you. And thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today and have a chance to talk. I'm really excited for what we have planned today. And it's interesting because I'll get into my intro, into my bio and stuff like that. But just to let everyone know, this program is called The Power of Connection, Networking 101. I typically call this the power of no. And no can stand for Networking 101, but no can also stand for no. And so we're not just going to get into the networking. We're going to get a little bit salesy, just a little bit. I promise. I know sales is really scary. And so we won't talk a lot about sales, but we're going to talk just a little bit about the sales process and how that connects with the networking process. So it's Networking 101. It's the power of no. As Andy said, my name is Mitch Nelles. My company is Thunder MKE LLC, where we make some noise. We focus on networking. We focus on nonprofit sponsorships and you could say the sales process because it's actually pretty similar, but the sponsorship process through nonprofit. I'm also an MC. I'm also an auctioneer. I'm also a podcaster. And so those are the things that I handle under the Thunder MKE umbrella. Essentially, I help you make some noise. That's what I'm here to do. I grew up in the Boston area. I see Brittany's from Massachusetts. I grew up in Framingham, Massachusetts, but I moved outside of Milwaukee when I was in high school. I went to Nicolet. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I did go for 6 years. I'm not a doctor. But I recommend to everyone to go for 6 years if you can as an undergrad. I graduated in journalism. I then worked for a couple of years for Time Warner Cable in retail sales, having no retail or sales experience whatsoever. And then I went and started my journalism career where I worked for the Ozaki Press, the newspaper up in Port Washington, the community paper. And then I went into sports radio. I was in sports radio for about 15 years. I worked for Good Karma Brands, which is based in Beaver Dam, which has offices in Milwaukee and Madison. I worked for iHeartMedia Milwaukee. And so I was in sports media for about 15 years, where I was both on the air and I was in sales and marketing. And so I would say networking was part of what I did literally on a daily basis for 15 straight years while I was there. I helped start new radio stations. I helped start new radio companies, um, and really loved doing all that. Um, the name of my company, Thunder MKE, is because my radio nickname was Thunder. If there's time at the end, I can tell you the story of how that started. I will say, however, that I did not make up that name myself. You are not allowed to come up with your own nickname, as George Costanza taught us from Seinfeld. You can't come up with your own nickname. And so that nickname was given to me. So, like Andy said at the beginning, for those of you who feel comfortable in the chat, feel free to chime in where you're from. And also during the presentation, feel free to jump in and with questions or comments or observations. As someone with a radio background, I am used to being in front of rooms with a microphone presenting, but I'm also used to the constant interaction of hosting a radio show. And so oftentimes, especially now that we do things virtually, I almost treat my presentations like a live radio show. So feel free to chime in, feel free to throw a comment up. I might get to it later. I might get to it right away. And so we'll see if we can do that. One of the things I really like to delve into before we get into the power of networking and the power of no, and even the power of storytelling, which is another thing that I'm going to touch on today, is sharing my why. I've done numerous seminars, and if you've seen Simon Sinek, he's like the crown prince of explaining. People don't buy what you're selling; they buy why. They don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. They don't buy what you're selling; they buy why you're selling it. They buy you. And so we'll talk about relationships and all those sorts of things. But my why, and when we talk about why, a lot of times we drill it down where I want to tell everyone that everybody's why, and I'll bet we could do a show of hands if we wanted to here. One of everyone's why is I want to help other people. Why did you get into coaching? Why did you get into recruitment? Why did you get into sales and marketing? Why did you get into whatever business you're in? Small business ownership, working for American Family Insurance, selling insurance. Why did you want to help? Why did you want that career? Well, you have to pay the bills. You have to do this. You have to do that. But I wanted to help people. And so what I really try to do is get people to share the why behind their why. And sometimes this goes back to childhood, and sometimes it goes back to relationships with parents or siblings or teachers or mentors or whatever it might be. And finding out really what someone's why behind their why is. And I will share that as a 14-year-old, growing up, having just moved to Milwaukee, which, everything worked out really well, but that's a traumatic thing to have, moving from the Boston area to the Milwaukee area. And then I'd gone to summer camp my entire life. And when I was 15, I didn't get accepted to go on a trip. That was like the culmination of all your summer years. And part of it was because I'd moved, I think, and part of it was because I'd always been at camp on scholarship. And so I didn't have that, and I didn't have younger siblings that the camp needed to keep in the pipeline. And so my why has always been to include everyone, to connect everyone, to include everyone. We all have friends. And again, we could do a show of hands. We all have friends who don't invite other friends to things because they want to keep their groups of friends separate. They're not sure how they'll mix. They're not sure how they'll get along. Yes, if there's a wedding or a bat mitzvah or something big and everybody's together, that's great. But a lot of times I notice many people keep their friends separate. And I've never done that. I've always tried to mix my friends. I've always tried to include as many people together and to connect. And I also, if you see my list of Facebook friends or LinkedIn connections, I'm connected to everyone I've ever known. And so this opportunity to stay connected to everyone I've ever known has always been a really strong, and my why is, there's it's not major trauma by any means, but there's a little trauma in that background. And I'm guessing we all have that story, whether it's trauma, whether it's experience, however you want to label it, that got us to where we are today. That is the why behind our why. So that is the why behind my why of why I love networking, of why do I love sales? I'm not sure I love sales, but I love the sales process. I love when you talk about sales and you talk about relationships, I love those relationships. So the power of connection and the power of networking 101. And this presentation has changed a lot in the past 3 years because I used to talk about almost completely about walking into the room, right? When you walk into a room and there's 50 people and everybody's got a name tag and everybody seems to know each other, that can be scary. That's a scary room to walk into. And we'll get to that room. But things have changed because of COVID and because of pandemic. And I mean, listen, we're not all in the same room right now. We're all in the same Zoom room, but we're not all in the same room. So things have absolutely changed about networking and introversion versus extroversion and outgoing versus shy and all those sorts of things. But I'll start with some of the basics. And real quick, want to say hi to Jacqueline, who's with Just Bakery in Dane, Madison, in Dane County, I'm assuming, Madison, Wisconsin. Sarah's here, and she referenced T-Bone, the nickname from Seinfeld that George Costanza tried to give himself. And she's in Milwaukee. Others feel free to chime in where you're from if you want to. I'm in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee, just north of Milwaukee. So when you talk about the power of networking, we're really talking about the power of relationships and the power of opening ourselves up and being somewhat vulnerable. And that's not an easy thing to do. It is not easy to walk into a room or to sign up for a Zoom or to sign up for a networking group or go to a networking breakfast. It is not easy to have that concept in our head, have that mindset that we're going to be vulnerable today. But guess what? You already made that decision. You already made the decision to be vulnerable when you signed up. So now when you're walking into the room, whether you want to battle yourself or not, that ends up being the question. Do you want to have that internal monologue, that inner fight about I'm arguing with myself about how outgoing I'm going to be or how into it I'm going to be, but you're already into it. You're already in the room. You've already won. You've already conquered that fear. And too often we don't give ourselves enough credit for that win. And I could go on a whole tangent about all the wins that we don't give ourselves credit for in life. I'm sure we can all think of multitude of things, but that's a win. When you signed up for this event, or you signed up for that networking and breakfast that's once a month on Fridays, or you signed up for whatever it might be, you've already won. Now, sometimes you show up and sometimes you don't. Sometimes life interferes and you get a call from school and you got to go deliver lunch to your daughter. And sometimes you show up. Sometimes you walk into that room and the fear that you feel when you walk into that room, in some ways you've already won. And you have to remember to give yourself credit for that win, because wins stack. When you stack successes, when you stack wins, it makes you that much more confident. And at the end of the day, networking comes down to confidence and having the opportunity to go up to somebody, or having the courage to go up to somebody and say hello. Well, it's a lot easier to go up and say hello to somebody if you have in your mind that you've already won X, Y, and Z today. You have all these wins, so why not go get another one? Real quick, hi to Lori and Spooner, hi to Nicole in Waterloo, Wisconsin representing. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for jumping in. So when we're talking about networking and being in the room is one of the huge opportunities with networking, of course. And sometimes, again, you know who's in the room, and it's warm leads, or it's people you've met, or people you've met on Zoom who you haven't met IRL, who you haven't met in real life. And sometimes it's a brand new room. But I would encourage you to remember to stack those wins, because people say to me, people get shocked when I tell them, oh, I don't want to walk into, I'm shy. I'm shy, or I'm hesitant, or whatever it is. People say, Mitch, like, You pick up like you used to throw t-shirts out at Milwaukee Bucks games in front of 18,000 people. You do auctions and MC events for 600-700 people. Like, how can you possibly be shy to walk into a room with 20 people? Well, there's something vulnerable about that, right? There's something scary about that, and that's okay. So I tell people not to be shy, but I don't really mean that, because how you feel is how you're going to feel, and it's okay to be shy. It's not. I would argue it's not necessarily okay to let that shyness dominate, but it's okay to acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to be shy. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be hesitant. It's okay to be trepidatious. I don't know where I pulled that word from. I'm gonna have to look that one up later. But it's that opportunity. What's next? How do we turn this room into a warm room if it's a cold room? So I'm going to back up a second. I'm going to come back to the room, but I'm going to jump into LinkedIn for a minute. I'm going to jump in. I'll jump into maybe some other social medias. If you guys want to talk TikTok, we can. I'm terrible at it, but I'm on it. I know Sarah's here and she's on TikTok, and I've seen her get her stuff out there, and it's real good. But I want to talk about LinkedIn, because when I started in the sales business, I think 80% of my calls were cold calls. And yes, I'm delving into the sales world, but you'll see how it relates to networking in a second. I'm a young up and comer at a sports radio station. We're trying to find advertisers. We're trying to find sponsors. And so we're going down the list of restaurants and power tools and lawnmower, the people who sell whatever we think that men 35 to 54, who's our target audience, the companies that are going to cater to those groups. And we're just calling up and saying, hi, my name's Mitch. I'm calling from ESPN Milwaukee. Can I talk to the person who handles your marketing and advertising? No warmth, no connection, simply a cold call. And there are better ways to do that cold call. For those of you who follow Paul Newberger, who's the cold call coach, I know he has numerous proven remedies to the cold call. Well, my proven remedy to the cold call ties into networking, and it's simply this. It's 2023. The opportunity to turn our cold calls and back to networking, back to getting in that room, our cold rooms into warm calls and warm rooms is what should be the focus moving forward. Whether you're using LinkedIn or Facebook or TikTok's a little different, but other social medias, or whether you're using your personal network, there are numerous ways to turn a cold call into a warm call. Somebody knows somebody. Somebody has worked with somebody. Somebody has served on a board with somebody. Somebody's been to a game with somebody. Somebody's kids go to school together. Whatever that might be. We can find those things out now in 2023 way more easily than we could in 2003, right? We have all these different technological advances that we can, and you can, some people say internet stalking and that sort of thing. But listen, we all have LinkedIn, hopefully, and actually feel free in the chat to throw up your LinkedIn profile, your LinkedIn link. If people want to link in, and you can say, you can connect with people you've never met before, and you can say, Mitch made me do it. If you want to write in that little message, Mitch made me do it, right? Mitch made me connect with you on LinkedIn, because you never know who knows who. You never know who's going to help who. But the more warm leads you have to find your next sales lead, your next sponsorship, your next networking opportunity, your next job. We all read these reports about how people switch careers much more frequently than our parents did, or our grandparents did, or whatever that might look like. Well, so much of that is done via networking, that the more you're willing to open up your network, the less scary networking is. So real quick, I'm going to take a deep breath. I see Sarah and I see Cornelius in Milwaukee, putting up their LinkedIn profiles. I'm actually going to I'm clicking on mine right now. I'm going to Control X. I'm going to come back over to my Zoom. Nicole put hers. Brittany put hers. I'm just going to Control Z and and there it is. Nice. So if there's any, as we're posting all these, and I'm going to connect with everybody, I'm going to save the chat at the end. You don't know how to save a chat in a Zoom? I would say, come on, people, it's been 3 years. How do we not know? Those 3 dots, copy, chat, all those sorts of things. But that's part of networking too, right? When you're in a Zoom for networking or for professional purposes, and there's people in there you don't know, and you save the chat, and then you follow up and follow through with people, that's a whole that's a whole subset of networking. So we're here, we're in the room, we're on LinkedIn, we're signed up for the event, and we're in the room, and here we are, and we have that opportunity to present ourselves, to represent ourselves, to meet someone else. And you know what I always think of when I think of networking this way? I think of dating. And this is where the power of no comes in. You've had in your mind, and I don't know if everybody has this person, but I'm guessing a lot of us have this person from high school or from college, a person you always wanted to date or always wanted to go out with, or always thought they looked like they were having the most fun. They looked like they were the coolest. They looked like they were in the right crowd that we wanted to be, whatever it might be. Jacqueline, nice job. She wrote, "Why was this so complicated? LOL." But then she got her link up. So we appreciate that. And so we spend days or weeks or months just kind of thinking about, should we ask them out? When's the time going to be perfect to ask them out? When's the time going to be right to ask them out? How do we ask them out? What do we say? What do we don't say? Do we want to make sure there are friends around? Do we want to make sure we're alone? Do we want to make sure, do we call? Do we text? Do we go up to them in person? And we spend months and months and months stressing the stress. I mean, I'm sweating just thinking about it. That question, are we going to ask them out? And so right now, they're a maybe. They're not even a maybe. We haven't even given them a chance to say maybe, but in our minds, they're a maybe, right? They haven't said yes to a date. They haven't said no to a date. They're somewhere in the middle. They're a maybe. Similar. Networking, sales, fundraising. You have your person you want to ask for a sponsorship or for sales. For those of you in the Milwaukee area, I will think about David Gruber Law, right? Gruber Law, one call, that's all. They're on everything. They sponsor everything. And they're, so any new person gets into marketing or advertising, or a new company starts, they want to get in touch with Gruber. And so they think about it. They strategize on it. They try to figure it out. And this can go on for a long time. This can go on for months. But guess what? Guess what the worst word in networking is? Guess what the worst word in sales is? I was going to see if anybody typed it up real quick, although I didn't give that prompt. It's maybe. It's maybe. It's we'll see. It's we'll get back to you. It's we'll think about it. All of those are words for maybe, right? And what I'm here to tell you is you've been trying to network with this person for months, and you've been trying to strategize the perfect location, the perfect scenario for it. You've been trying to sell something to someone. You've been trying to fundraise from someone. You've been trying to get in front of someone. You've been trying to get the next client or partner or whatever it might be. And when you don't ask, in your head, it's still alive. It could still happen. it's still going. It's ongoing. I might be stressing about it, and I might be losing sleep about it, and might be freaking out about it. But in my mind, that rejection of a no is so damning, is so powerful that I can't fathom that no. Well, I'm here to tell you the power of no. Short term, while it may hurt a lot, is so much healthier, is so much better than the maybe. And long term is a million times better than the maybe. So I go back to my dating analogy and I think about the movie Swingers. Yes, I have gray hair. I'm old. When did Swingers come out? Like 93, 95? Because NHL 95 played a prominent point. It was a video game and it played a prominent point to that movie. So I think it must have been like 94, 95, 96. Anyway, if you haven't seen Swingers, and it's okay if you haven't, I don't know if it stands the test of time because it's got to be crazy misogynistic. But there are some great lines that came out from the movie. But the premise is Jon Favreau, who has now directed a bunch of the Iron Man and Spider-Man movies, and is an actor in his own right. He moved from New York to LA to meet up with his buddies. He had just gone through a really bad breakup. He meets a girl at a bar. And he spends half the movie freaking out about should he ask her out? Should he not ask her out? And his friends spend the whole movie telling him he's money, tell him he's good. He's the guy. He's the man. Ask her out. You got so much to offer. You're such a great guy. Now, partly they want to get him out of his doldrums. Partly they're sick of him complaining about his girlfriend back in New Jersey or New York or wherever it was. But part of it is he doesn't ask her out. I mean, they dance together, they connect, but they're not, there's just, he can't summon up the courage to get the yes or the no. He's stuck in that maybe because maybe means possibility. Maybe means possibility. And I get that. But possibility doesn't accomplish your goals. Possibility doesn't get you to meet the person you want to meet, doesn't get you to network with the person you want to network, doesn't get you to fundraise from the person you want to fundraise from, doesn't get you the client that you want to work with. Results get those. And to get results, you've got to get past that maybe, past that possibility, and get to the power of no. Now, if they say yes, I'll be right next to you, shooting off the confetti and eating the gumdrops and spraying water in the air so a rainbow appears and unicorns will fly all over the place and it's wonderful, right? The yeses are fantastic. No doubt about it. Yeses are tremendous. But no's can move you to the next level. Because again, if you have been thinking about that person for months, you wanted to ask them out on a date, and you don't. And finally you do, and they say no, that is crushing. That hurts so much. But you know what you got to do? You got to wake up the next day. And you got to wake up the next day. And you got to wake up the next day. And you got to whether you have a plan in place or not, you have finality. That answer is a no. You know what that means? That means somebody else is going to be a yes. That means you are so much closer to a yes than if you spent another month as a maybe. Because if you spent another month as a maybe and then got the no, you just wasted that month. You've probably already wasted the month thinking about the fundraising or the sales or the networking opportunity that you could have had. But you now have that opportunity to take that no, to compartmentalize it, to put it to the side and move on and get to the next yes. Okay, so Gruber said no. Gruber Law in Milwaukee said no. Well, maybe Cupid Abraham says yes. Or maybe, insert law firm here says yes. Or maybe accountant or banker or whoever it might be. You asked this person out on a date, they said no. Well, maybe right around the corner is the person you were supposed to meet. Maybe that wasn't supposed to be your person, even though you'd built it up in your head that maybe they could be. But that doesn't mean they are. So you have that opportunity to turn that no into more yeses. Like Cornelia says, getting to know is great. You then know you can move on. And again, getting that no is great. You know, then you can move on. Like Cornelius just said, you do that in the realm, again, of using all the tools at your disposal. So whether you're using LinkedIn or Facebook, I remember years ago, I was working at a radio station and I had my Facebook page open. I was on the sale, I was on the air, but my desk was on the sales side. And so I'm at my desk and my Facebook is open. And my coworkers would, Mitch, what are you fooling around on Facebook for? And half the time I was fooling around on Facebook. I was also on the air. So I was talking about Aaron Rodgers, or I was talking about Giannis, or I was talking about, the Badgers or whatever it might be, because I was talking about Wisconsin sports on the air. But this time my boss Tom walked by and he sees Facebook, and Tom's old school. Tom is pound those phones. Okay. Tom says to me, "What you on Facebook again? What are you doing? You're not on air right now. You're supposed to be doing your sales stuff." And I literally pointed to my screen. I had 3 Facebook message windows open where I was connecting with either current advertisers or asking people for leads or for referrals to advertisers of mutual connections we had. This isn't a Facebook ad. Facebook has a lot wrong with it, as we all know. But using the tools you have at your disposal. So if it's Facebook, or if it's LinkedIn, or if you've really figured out TikTok, or if it's Snapchat, or all the social media, or if it's simply picking up the phone and talking to people in a way that we don't really talk to people anymore, but asking somebody for a referral, or asking somebody who they know or who they can introduce you to, emailing people, meeting people out and about, even social, but having in the back of your mind, I'm going to ask this person, like, I know this person knows, I know this good friend of mine knows this person who I've been trying to get. And yeah, maybe it's a little awkward that I ask them who, can you introduce me? But it's only a little awkward, right? Again, it's 2023. It's okay to ask for introduction. It's okay to ask for referrals. It's okay to help each other out. My friend Pat Miller, who runs the Idea Collective, who actually should do one of these, American Family, because he's done TED Talks and stuff like that, tells us all to not grow it alone. And so when I think about networking, I think about that opportunity. You don't have to grow it alone. You don't have to do it by yourself. We have tools at our disposal now in 2023 that we didn't have 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we have that opportunity to ask. And that's one of the things I want to make sure that everybody remembers as well. When we're talking about networking, or we're talking about sales, or we're talking about fundraising, when we finally get in front of somebody, when we finally make that connection, again, you're going to want to feel this out. But whether it's the end of that first meeting, or if you set up a follow-up and set up that follow-up, make sure you don't leave like, oh, I'll call you. Put something, even if you pencil it in, put it in your phone, put in a date to get back together. But at some point, sooner than later, because again, we don't want those maybes hanging out there and hanging out there and hanging out there. Ask for it. Ask for what you want. It's okay. It's okay to ask for what you want. It's okay to ask for a referral or an introduction. It's okay to ask for a sale. It's okay to ask fundraising, to ask for a gift, to ask for philanthropy, networking. It's okay to ask, can we connect on LinkedIn, and can I take you out for a cup of coffee? Can we start creating that relationship? We've got that. We've created the connection. Now we need to create that relationship. So I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody that I have the secret sauce to get over your fears, to get over your shyness, to get over, because everybody has their own introversion, extroversion, wherever you are on that spectrum. What I'm here to tell you is that however scary you've built it up to be, it's not as scary as you think it is. I promise. And that in the long run, the maybes are going to hurt a lot more than the no's. And I'll give you another example that I have in my head that isn't even a real thing. This isn't even a real thing, but this is what we do to ourselves as human beings. This is what we do to ourselves. I have in my head that if I call, I have company X in my head, and I have in my head that if I call them, they're going to say no. And so I've spent the last 2 years not calling them. I spent the last 2 years. Now this might just like belie everything that I just, or undercut everything I just talked about, because it means I'm not living what I'm preaching. But I would go back and argue that we're all better at giving advice than taking our own advice, right? But so I have this company that I have in my mind that I could do great things for. But I think if I call them, they're going to say no. So I send a little text message here, or I LinkedIn message here, and I try to drop some seeds, but I haven't come out and asked for it. And in my head, it's a possibility. It's still alive. How much healthier would it be? And maybe this is what I needed. Maybe today is what I needed. How much healthier would it be if I just called up and said, here's my idea. Here's how I can help you. Let's find a way. And they might say, come on in. They might say, well, let's grab a cup of coffee. They might say, we're not looking for that right now. They might say no. Wouldn't I have a lot more clarity? Wouldn't my mental health be a lot healthier if I were able to get to that conclusion? I'm not sure, but I sure think so. You know, again, I'm second guessing myself. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I know how that would go. So we've talked about turning cold calls into warm leads. We got to turn our cold calls into warm leads. We got to use all the tools at our disposal. We've talked about not being shy, even when we're shy, and that's okay. We've talked about using all the different forms of media we have. Quickly, I want to talk on following through. And we briefly touched on that with the concept of pull out your phone and say, hey, can I schedule something for next week? Or you get somebody on email and send them an invite. Even if they said, oh, I have a couple times available next week, or you haven't pinpointed a date. Sometimes sometimes it's not going to work out. They're not available. They can't. But sometimes just you having that assertiveness to ask them for a specific date and time, or to throw out 3 specific times, but try not to leave a phone call. Try not to leave a LinkedIn message, conversation. Try not to leave a networking event. If it's somebody you want to sit down with and have a cup of coffee with, schedule that coffee. Don't say, I'll call you next week. You'll probably call them next week, but you've lost that momentum. You've made the connection, but you've lost a piece of that relationship. So follow through as immediately and as specifically as you can, because that will get you to that next point in that relationship. And then be ready to tell your story. Be ready to share your why. Be ready to share your why behind your why. If there's trauma involved, you don't have to share trauma on a first networking date or sales date or philanthropy date or whatever it might be. But be ready with your elevator pitch, but with your why you believe in what you're doing or what you're talking about, or why networking is important, or why sales, or why your mission or your organization or your company, or you're building your own company and you're a solopreneur, why that's important. Feel free to share that why as soon as you can. So that's networking 101. in a nutshell. It's connections, it's relationships, it's getting to that no. And I know it's scary. I know it's scary. You don't want to hear no. No one wants to hear no, but you're going to hear more yeses if you can get past that no, as opposed to having maybes hanging out there. I'm looking at it and they're just hanging out. They're just all over the place. The maybes are hanging out there. Get past the maybes, get to no's, because you know what's going to surprise you? You're going to get to some yeses. You're not just going to get to no's. And you know what feels even better than when somebody says no and you can move on? When somebody else says yes. When you get to that yes, it feels so good. So the power of no, actually, that's the secret sauce. Power of no is yes. The power of getting no's, the power of networking 101, the power of connections, the power of relationships is that you put the power of storytelling is that you put yourself in position to get that yes. Go get that yes. Thanks so much, everybody. My name's Mitch Nelles, aka Thunder. Feel free to unload with questions, comments, thoughts. If you agree, if you disagree, I love if people disagree. Remember that everybody put up their LinkedIn profiles on the right. So whether you've clicked on people and already started connecting with people, or if you connect on those 3 dots next to see where that smiley face is in your chat, those 3 dots, and then you can click on save chat, save that chat, and then go through, because I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to click on save chat, and then the chat's going to save when this meeting's done. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to connect with everybody on LinkedIn and however we can help each other. And remember, that doesn't mean we're in business together. It doesn't mean we're beholden to each other. It's the opportunity to network and to help each other out and to have each other's backs. So let's get those yeses, everybody. Andy, to you.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and remove the spotlight just so we can kind of see anybody if they wanted to come off of mute. I will go ahead and kick things off with Q&A, but Mitch, I'm curious, even though I have heard this story before, how did you get your nickname Thunder?
All right, I will share that, Andy, and I appreciate that. So I was on the radio on ESPN Milwaukee and ESPN Madison with a gentleman named Steve the Homer True. Homer is the voice of Marquette basketball, and has been for like 70 bazillion years. We don't make fun of him for being that old. Although I think I told him he was no spring chicken like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Anyway, so we were on the air together, and we were on in Madison. We were on in Milwaukee from 2 to 6 and Madison from 3 to 6. So every day at 3 o'clock, we recapped what we talked about in the first hour just to get everybody, our audience in Madison, caught up. And one day he came on and just started talking about everything we had talked about in the 2 o'clock hour. He didn't, there was no, and finally I interrupted him like 5 minutes in and I said, Homer, but we forgot to do But First. That was the name of the segment. And it was sponsored by a car dealership. And so we had to do it. I said, Homer, we forgot to do But First. And Homer says, oh my gosh, you're right. We totally forgot to do But First. Mitch, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. And so I did something that you're not supposed to do. And I'm going to do it right now. So everybody hold your ears because it might be a little loud. I said, Homer, you can't steal my thunder because it's all thunder. Unrehearsed, unplanned, didn't we didn't plan for him to start and he just started saying, so he started the show intro. He started saying with Mitch bringing the thunder. And then he just started calling me Thunder. And it just kind of stuck. And I know it's kind of weird, but even I haven't been on the air in 3-4 years. I still do some Facebook Lives and stuff like that, but I'll be walking around a Bucks game with my daughter and some guy across the concourse will be like, hey, Thunder, what's going on, man? I'm like, oh, I guess it's a cool nickname. I'm proud that someone else gave it to me and that I didn't come up with it myself.
Thanks so much for that, Mitch.
Yep. So if anybody has questions, they can raise the hand icon or they can just come off of mute. Or if you don't want to ask the question, but you want to type it in, feel free to do that as well. And I'm switching my view to gallery just because I like gallery so much better. I like seeing everybody and all the people who are here. And if there's no questions, that's okay too. Jarena is here. So we're at a networking event, room full of people who you do not know. Where do you start? How do you know who to say hello to? And after hello, how do we start conversation without a sales pitch? Jarena, that and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. So you can let me know. So that's, these are rooms that I think, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we felt a lot more comfortable in these rooms 5 years ago than we do today, just because we weren't in them for a year and a half or 2 years or whatever your business networking organizations do. And so there's no right answer. There's a wrong answer. The wrong answer is to go get a drink and to go stand off in the corner by yourself. If you're at a networking event, and it's a networking event, and it's a real networking event, everyone knows why you're in the room. Everyone is there to network. People are there to meet other people. I might go to a networking event knowing that there's a couple people there I want to network with that I know are going to be in the room. But there are other networking events that I show up to. I have no idea who's going to be there. And I'm just there to meet people and hand out my card or take out my phone and connect with people on LinkedIn right there, or set up a coffee with somebody right there. As awkward as it sounds, and this is an awkwardness that as humans, we kind of need to get past. You just go up to a group. If you feel less threatened, you find somebody else who's doing what I just said not to, standing by themselves. And you just, because one-on-one, if somebody's standing by themselves, you can tell if they're busy gathering their stuff or they're a little shy. And if you're a little shy, that's okay too, because you can say, hey, I see that you're kind of hanging out. I'd love to introduce myself and hear what you got going on. And one thing to ask people, especially in a one-on-one at a networking event, like, what brought you here today? What brought you here today? Because they saw it advertised, they saw it on LinkedIn, they got an email about it, a friend brought them. But that's an easy question where it's like, where if I'm by myself at a networking event and somebody came up to me and said, hey, what brought you here today? That's a non-threatening question. You didn't just ask me for my business. You didn't just ask to sell me insurance. Andy, no offense. You're not trying to sell me a car. So ask them the question, and Cornelius just nailed it. And then listen, because people do like to talk, even shy people. They do like to talk. And what brought you here today means you're asking them to talk about themselves. And there's as much as I think I'm humble and I don't have an ego. There are very few topics I know better than myself. I know where I grew up. I know where I live. I know what I like and don't like. So if you ask me what brought me here today, I'm going to be able to answer that question. And then I'm going to ask you, what brought you here today? And then 2 more people come to the table, and all of a sudden you got 4 people networking, even though it felt scary at first, even though you didn't know where to start. Or you can go up to a full table, say there's 4 or 5 people at a table, and just slide in and listen a lot at first. They might be in the middle of a conversation. You don't want to, hey, everybody, I'm Mitch and I'm no. Let the conversation flow. But then if it wanes a little bit, you can turn to the person next to you and you can say the same question, what brought you here? Or, hey, what were you guys just talking about? Or, hey, what type of business are you in? Or what are you, what interests brought you here today? Those sorts of things. So it's not, you don't want to open with, hey, I'm so-and-so from X company and I'm here to help you with this, or I'm here to network. We're all here to network. We're at a networking event. That's why we're trying to figure out, like, we're trying to navigate this room. And believe me, Jarena and everybody else, that room isn't easy for anybody. You can be the most outgoing, the person, the life of the party. No one walks into that networking room fully comfortable. No one. So when you remember that, again, you're already in the room. Remind yourself, you already won. You're there. You won. Feel good about yourself. And then just let it happen. And I say organically, but it's not always organic. Sometimes it's harder sometimes you do have to force it a little bit, but jump in because you've already won. You're already there. Nicole asked me, how do we find these networking events? And networking events are really easy to find and really hard to find. And I know that doesn't help at all. A lot of communities have, whether they have chambers or whether they have small business groups. I know that I'm a part of Small Biz MKE. A woman named Tracy Champagne runs Small Biz MKE, does a great job. She and one of her partners, Kim Knock, host networking events, multiple networking events, both virtual and in person, numerous events throughout the week. Join groups on LinkedIn. There are groups on LinkedIn that help, and you can geographically find them. There are groups on Facebook as well. And I'd say those are the easiest, but also ask your friends, ask your coworkers, ask your friends, ask people at work, ask people in social circles. Hey, what do you do for networking? I think that's a question we don't ask our friends. And I was just thinking about it. I have a friend who just got hired as head of HR at a local coffee company. And I want to know where he's networking because I love coffee. And if I can figure out and meet the right person who can just hook me up with free coffee, I'm down with that. So I'm here for that. Sarah mentions Meetup and Eventbrite. And I think those are two great places. Those are both websites. And if you just search networking in your city or your town or whatever it might be, you're going to find networking events, no doubt about it. Phil asks, what's the best way to figure out who to email to get in the door with the company if you don't have any contacts there? So Phil, I'm really going to push back on that. And I'm really going to challenge you to get a warm lead. Now, I think, and I believe this, I really do, I think around 80 to 85% of the time, you're going to get a warm lead. But that still means there's 10, 15, 20% of the time, you're not going to get a warm lead at the company you want to network with, or you want to find out about employment opportunities, or you want to find as a sponsor for your event or whatever it might be. That's still a pretty big percent. 20% is still a pretty big percent. Well, then you have to, then you really got to tailor it to who you're trying to get in front of. Are you trying to get in front of a marketing person? Are you trying to get in front of that person in HR? Are you really trying to get in front of a C-level person? Or do you need to get to their gatekeeper first and create a relationship so then they're willing to warm lead introduce you to that C-level person? So the best way to figure out is first of all, think about what you have to offer, what the angle that you're coming from. Are you able to figure out who's the best? If you could meet the ideal person, the number one ideal person at that company that you want to meet with. And Phil, if you want to take yourself off mute, we could role play this real quick if you want to. But figuring out who that person is, and then drilling down. Okay, so if I can meet the chief marketing officer, that'd be amazing. But looking at their corporate list, they have a vice president of marketing, they have a marketing manager. Well, the marketing manager is not going to be able to make any decisions. So then you need to make the decision. Is it better to connect with that marketing manager? Is going to be way easier to meet with and create and now you're in it for the long game, to create that relationship, to build a relationship with that person, that at some point that person will feel comfortable introducing you to their boss or their boss's boss. Or do you just keep mining LinkedIn and mining Facebook and finding other business connections to get straight to that chief marketing officer because you figured out their kids play soccer with so-and-so kids, and you've known that person, and maybe they can make a warm lead that's more social than work related, but at least you get that introduction. So it's really, there are multiple ways to go about it. If you really don't know, there are, this is where I go back to, I mentioned Paul Newberger, who's really good at crafting that email or making that phone call. You need an email with a subject that they're going to open. It's got to be brief. It's got to be to the point. You got to hit them over the head with honesty and with transparency. And you got to put yourself out there a little bit. You got to say, hey, I know this. I know we don't know each other, but I have an opportunity. I have something I'd really love to discuss with you. I need 10 minutes. I know you're super busy. I respect that. I need 10 minutes. I'm not asking for an hour lunch. I'm not asking for a half hour. I need 10 minutes to just introduce myself, tell you about what I got going on. And maybe there's somebody else in your organization that then I can meet with. But can I get 10 minutes? Sometimes that works. Sometimes, you'd like to think post-COVID, we all have the opportunity to give someone else 10 minutes. That we've all learned some humility and some kindness in our lives. I think a lot of people have. I think there's still a lot of people who probably have. But I appreciate that. Thanks to everybody who's chiming in and who said thank you, and who, I know Jennifer had to bounce. Walking Dead in the background, huh, Phil? Nice, I like it. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. Andy, anything else on your mind?
Yeah, no, I just we're getting close on time here, and I wanted to wrap things up again. I want to thank
Save
you
the
all
chat. Save the chat.
Save the chat. That's right.
Everybody connect with Andy.
Yes. Again, I just really wanted to highlight, today's our first day back open up at DreamBank, our physical location, our brick and mortar location in downtown Madison. So if you folks are ever in the area, want to make the journey, we would love to have you here. But Mitch, as we wrap up here at DreamBank, we are a community that is built of fellow fearless dreamers. And I want to ask you, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who's actively pursuing a dream right now?
Wow. That's near and dear to my heart. That's a big question. I would say at the end of the day, if you are pursuing a dream, first of all, write it down. Literally just take a pen and a paper and write it down, because that makes it a little bit more real. But then I would say, it's easy to say, and I'm sure most of the people, when you asked Andy, when you ask people that, go after it. And I don't disagree with that. But what I would say to people is, don't be afraid, to fail, but more, don't be afraid to tweak. Don't be afraid that whatever you thought your dream was in 6 months looks a little bit different. Is not exactly what you thought your dream was. That doesn't mean you failed. It's okay to make changes. If you wrote down your dream and in 3 months you realize that's not really the dream has elements of that, but it's actually something else. And so now I need to network with somebody new, or build something new, or figure out finances for something new. That's okay. That's not failure. It's failure if you stop and just give up when you want to keep going. But tweaks, changes, pivots, now we have to drink, right? Those are all okay things to do. Don't be scared of them. Just like when you walk into a room of networkers, you've already won. You've already written that down. If you've written that down, you've already won. It's okay to make changes. It's okay it's okay that it doesn't look like the way you thought it was going to look like when you dreamt it up a year ago or 2 years ago. Because if you love it, if you're living it, that's okay. Make it okay.
I appreciate that, Mitch, and very, very sound advice in my opinion. And as I sit in the heart of the DreamBank exhibit, I just want to highlight here, I don't know how difficult or easy, but as you see, these are all keys that are written there, and it may be pretty hard to see, but on each and every one of those keys, there's a dream that someone came in and declared. And there's some science we like to explain to folks when they come visit our spaces, that you're actually 40% more likely to accomplish a goal or a dream by writing it down or sharing with someone. So I very much appreciate that, Mitch. With that being said, we are quickly approaching that 1 p.m. Deadline. So again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I dropped a link, which is a good concise link of that houses all of our previous events that we've recorded. This event is being recorded and will be aired there, so you can go back and reference it if you need to. Thank you so much, Mitch, for doing this. Mitch, if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
So my LinkedIn is on there, but I'm going to put my email address in right now. And I'm an inbox detox person. So I do work really hard to keep a clean inbox. Oh, I realized, hold on. Just give me 1 second. I typed it to, someone had sent me a direct message. So of course it went there. All right, there it is. Mitchell.Nelles@gmail.com. or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or LinkedIn is great. I mean, and my LinkedIn is in the chat. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for that. We will
Thank you.
go ahead and
thank you, DreamBank.
Yes, yes, and we will see you all next time. Take care.
It's still January 10th. So happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
So it's okay to still say Happy New Year. And let's, I know that we've had a full week of 2023 now, but it's still okay to grab 2023 and make it our year and get a bunch of wins. So go get a bunch of wins, everybody.
Bye-bye.